There are a number of different ways to create files in ARGUS DCF. As I mentioned before, the ARGUS wizard will guide you through step by step to define property specifications and basically get you on track to beginning the analysis, discounted cash flow analysis of a income producing property. Also, as previously mentioned, there are a number of templates that you could start from. I would say that neither one of these are a very good way of beginning to learn the program. Really, the best way to start learning the functionality of the program is to create a property from scratch. So I'm going to go to File, New, and I'm going to say I want to create a property from scratch. It's going to ask me for a file name. I'm going to go ahead and just call this class practice number 1. Let's save this to my desktop. So the very first thing that the program will ask for is the description of the property. This is going to include the physical description of the property, but mostly this is just going to be outputs for reporting. So these don't actually have effect on the model itself, but they will be present in the final reports or the cover page for the final reports. I live in the Cayman Islands, and there are some very interesting international features for this program. So I'm going to go ahead and just define this property as being in the Cayman Islands so that we can explore some of the applicability and features of the program from an international perspective. The default for all of this is, of course, US dollars and US date formats, etc. But just kind of to give you a different perspective and just functionality of the program. As I mentioned before, these property-specific definitions are not too important. What is very, very important on this property description tab is that you select a property type. The property type creates sort of a template, but really selects the different types of inputs that will be displayed in the model, or the options that will be displayed in the model. Most of what this program does is it takes the information that you provide and projects out the income producing potential of this property. I say that because it's important to note that different use types have very different income streams. Therefore, the assumptions and options that it will give you for creating these models are very different. Let's say, for instance, comparing a retail property to a hotel property or an apartment. Retail properties typically have either one tenant to a number of different tenants, and will define the cash flows for that property by how much those tenants are paying in rent, and how different things like operating expenses such as common area maintenance or property taxes or different types of ongoing costs of the property are split up between the owner of the property and the retail tenant. That is very different to something like a hotel, which would have income from a number of different rooms. Hotels typically have a number of different types of income streams like F&B, which is food and beverage, is a huge income stream for hotels. So creating a hotel model would have a very different types of income potential than a retail property would. So this is where you're going to define that property type. And it's very important to note because once this property type is selected, it cannot be changed in this model going forward. So students that have been in the Argus developer course will note that one of the most important things about Argus developer is that when you're selecting a start date, it can have very adverse consequences for changing that start date. I would say that this property type is even more important than the start date in Argus Developer. So pay very close attention to what you're selecting as your property type when you're starting out to create your own model. So here I've selected the specifics of the property location, my property type. I've left a few of these blank. It basically just means that these are not going to be displayed in the cover page of the outputs, final outputs or reporting of the model. So I've selected the property description. I'm going to go ahead and move on to timing. You'll notice that this pop-up says, warns you about what I just explicitly stated. You cannot change base property type after exiting this screen. Is this one okay? I would suggest that you go ahead and leave display this message in the future checked. I always have it checked just to remind me that this cannot be changed going forward.